Okay, well, let's just go ahead and get started. You may have noticed that I just turned on the recording, so we are going to record this. We'll have it available for later for people to view if they need to. But hi, everyone. I'm Lorianne. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Executive Director of the Arizona Master Naturalist Association. I'm personally speaking to you from the ancestral lands of the Tohono O'odham, Pascua Yaqui, and Hohokam people in Tucson, Arizona. I recognize that they've stewarded this land since time immemorial and remember their connection to this region. And I give thanks to them for the opportunity to live, work, learn, and gather on their traditional homelands. The work we seek to do as an organization only begins with recognizing the people who have lived here and is only one step in our journey towards inclusivity. Also, land acknowledgements are a fantastic way to offer gratitude, and I encourage you all to take a minute to reflect on what you're grateful for during these trying times. So on behalf of the association, I'm thrilled to introduce Cheryl Mollohan. Cheryl is a wildlife biologist with over 30 years of experience working with wildlife. Recently, Cheryl and a group of retired Arizona Game and Fish biologists were awarded a heritage grant from the Arizona Game and Fish Department to conduct a survey to study the Southwest bobcats living in urban wildland interfaces in Tucson. This is the fourth event in our series of online education and planned webinars, and the Arizona Master Naturalists are putting together great content to help further our mission of education, conservation, and citizen science during these challenging times. If you haven't already, please follow us for updates on Eventbrite, Facebook, and on our website's events page, linked from our website. And during the talk, I'll monitor the chat box. So if you have questions, go ahead and feel free to put them in there. We can take some questions throughout and then also at the end. And I do want to let everybody know it would be great if you could mute your microphones if you're not talking, just so we can kind of keep the background noise to a minimum. And I already said that I'd be recording this, so there's your second reminder in case you hopped in a couple minutes after I started talking. But otherwise, with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl to tell us all about her project. Okay, take it away.
All right, everyone can see that okay?
Yep, all good.
All good? All right, so Lorianne, let me know if something's not looking right or whatnot. So thank you for the introduction. I'm thrilled to be here today. This is the first time that we will be doing a couple things today. First of all, the first time we'll have given this program. And it's also gonna be our launch of our website. And the reason I mention that now at the top is that you'll see two things in this program that the Arizona Master Naturalist Group have already contributed. One is the website. Pete Pfeiffer has been helping us construct the website, and I'll give you that information at the end of how to go to it, and there's a couple things you can do there. And then also as you go along, you'll see some photographs from Paul Stillman, including one of a green bobcat, which I thought was hilarious. So watch for that. But anyway, so you guys are our first audience, and we're just thrilled to death all the way around. All right, so as I mentioned, this is Bobcats in Tucson research project, and Lorianne mentioned that we had a grant from the Arizona Game and Fish Department Heritage Fund, and this is, we're umbrellaed under the Southwest Wildlife Conservation Center. If you're not familiar with them, they're up in North Scottsdale, and they do a tremendous amount of good work, swcc.org. And we would not be here doing this if they had not been willing to sponsor us for our grant, so we're appreciative. There's a lot of us. This has kind of been a labor of love for most of us. There are 4 of us that are retired game and fish that are directly on the project as far as capturing and handling the bobcats. We have 2 veterinarians involved, Dr. Jay Johnson and Dr. Erica Johnson from the Arizona Exotic Animal Veterinary Hospital. And they will help us during our capture. Of course, we have to chemically immobilize our bobcats to put radio collars on and collect information. And that was a sticking point because It's difficult. Those are scheduled drugs, and they're difficult to work out a pathway when you're in a private situation like we are. So they were really an ace in the hole for us. Robert Davies is the Quiet Creek Company, and that's here in Tucson. And we'll be doing a lot of geographic information systems analysis of what information the Bobcats give us. They're going to be the lead on this, and we're going to follow along, and hopefully we can interpret what they have to say. And then Susie Prangy is a biologist that I worked with in Ohio on a Bobcat study. And Susie is going to help with our statistics. So a big group, very excited and really ready to get rolling. So a little bit about myself. This picture was taken in 2012, and this is our first female adult bobcat we caught in Ohio. You can see a radio collar. And what was exciting about that was that there was a 150-year absence in Ohio for bobcats, and they repopulated naturally. And we were able to get to be part of a study with the Ohio Division of Wildlife to study. So I'll give you some of that information as we go along today, because a lot of it ties back into what we're trying to do here in Tucson as well. All right, so before I start specifically talking about the study and bobcats, I want to spend just a little bit of time talking about cats, because the neat things about working on wildcats is that, first of all, it's a group of animals that we're all very familiar with. Most of us, many of us have cats. Many of us have more than one cat, or two or three or whatever. But anyway, the cool thing about cats is that they are all very similar. So what you already know about cats often also applies to wildcats. So first of all, most highly evolved of the carnivores. These guys are killing specialists, really and truly. Almost everything about the way a cat looks and how a cat acts has to do with being able to successfully capture prey. They are what we call obligate carnivores, which means that they only eat meat, and by and large, cats capture and kill their own prey. There are a couple exceptions, and I'll talk about those in a little bit. I think most people already know about the eyesight, but also excellent hearing, excellent sense of smell. Again, these guys are top of the heap as far as adaptations go. And then, you know, the athletics are amazing. We don't even give a second thought to our cat jumping 5 or 6 feet or climbing in an incredible way. So they really are amazing athletes. Okay, so again, one of the things I really hope everybody takes home today is a cat is a cat is a cat. What we say about bobcats and what we say about wildcats in many cases applies to your domestic cat. They're all very similar, and that even includes the one that many of us live with every day, and that's our domestic house cat. This is Stanley. I don't know why he had to be in that bag, but he did, and he's one of mine. Okay, so another thing I always like to talk about with cats is intelligence, because this is a fairly hotly disputed topic among people who love cats and those who aren't quite so positive about them. So first off, this is a scientific fact. All cats have large, well-developed brains, right? It's a nice big skull. They really are very smart. However, like I said, this is a disputed fact among people who like and don't like cats. And it's come up, consequently, we have some pretty good little statements. This is one of my favorites. You can train a cat to do anything it wants. If you've ever tried to train a cat, you know that. Cats know exactly how you feel. They don't give a damn, but they know. And then one of my favorites from one of my favorite authors, from Robert Heinlein, women and cats will do as they please, and men and dogs should relax and get used to the idea. Okay, so another place that cats are fairly unique is an attitude of, I have to say, superiority. And also, to me, the ownership or presentation of themselves in their environment. They own their environment. And again, this leads to some statements. Thousands of years ago, cats were worshipped as gods. Cats have never forgotten this. Dogs have owners, cats have staff. And attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. And this cat, I had this cat, and his name was Bob of the Serengeti, and that's because in his mind, he was a lion. It was what it was. Okay, so let's talk about some of the adaptations. First of all, huge feet. All cats have oversized paws. The paws do not use paws to kill with. They really use those claws to catch and hold on until they can deliver a killing bite. So you can see this is our largest male bobcat that we caught in Ohio. He was 26 pounds, by the way, but look at the size of his feet. His foot was as big as my hand, and he weighed 26 pounds. So they have huge feet. And then you can see the Canada lynx, who's reaching out and grabbing that snowshoe hare. Same idea. They reach, they grab, they hold on, and then they deliver that killing bite. So the face is very short, very strong jaw muscles. And what that does is it allows that mouth to open very wide and for them to bite down over the back or the back of the neck in most cases of their prey species. So very clinical way of killing, at least if everything goes right. The canine teeth are the killing teeth for carnivores. And in the case of cats, these, by the way, are mountain lion skulls, but cat skulls are all very similar, including your house cat. But the canine teeth fit down between the neck vertebrae of the prey, just like a key fitting into a lock. They're very sensitive. They have a lot of feeling at the base of the canines. They feel around for that gap. They bite down. If they don't kill the animal right away, they at least interrupt the spinal cord, and then they're able to kill it from there. So very, very specialized. This picture, it's not a bobcat. I had to put this picture in. There's a great story behind it. This guy, this was taken in India, and he went on 200 safaris. That would be a good job to have. He went on 200 safaris to get this picture, but it absolutely is a perfect example of how cats kill. You see those huge paws, and he's holding on to the deer. He's just getting ready to bite down onto the back of the neck. So very specific way of killing. Okay, so as far as Arizona goes, we were very lucky and still lucky to have 4 species of cats that are native to Arizona. The ocelot up in the upper left, the jaguar in the lower left, and of course the bobcat and mountain lion. We still have common populations of bobcats and mountain lions, and you will find them pretty much everywhere in Arizona that there is prey. That's what dictates where you find a carnivore, is where there are prey. The ocelots and the jaguars, of course, most people know, those are 2 species that we still periodically get that come up from Mexico, but unfortunately, as far as we know, not really any populations here in Arizona. Maybe that'll be something that'll change. All right, so from now on, I'll talk about bobcats specifically. I wanted to point out that almost all the pictures are of Tucson bobcats, which I think is incredibly cool. I've enjoyed opening my emails and looking at bobcat pictures. So as we go along, if it isn't a Tucson bobcat, I'll let you know, but otherwise. Okay, so a little bit about bobcats in general. They are a member of the lynx genus. There are 4 species of lynx in the world. They all share a pretty characteristic body shape, long legs, really big feet for the size of the body. the short tail, all characteristics of the lynx. The other thing that's interesting about this genus is that to some extent or the other, they all are dependent upon rabbits and hares. In some cases, almost entirely so. So in some cases, there's a very close relationship. We'll talk about the Canada lynx in a minute. But one of the benefits for bobcats of having a broader prey base. 2 species here in North America, 2 species in Europe. Here in North America, we have the Canada lynx and we have the bobcat. And what's interesting about these two, there are a lot of similarities between Canada lynx and bobcats. And you can see that their species range are almost diametrically opposed. The only place that you really see overlap is down the Rocky Mountains in the case of the Canada lynx, and up the Rocky Mountains in the case of the bobcat up into Canada. So there are places they overlap, but by and large, they fill the same niche in the environment of a small to medium-sized carnivore. So there's not a lot of overlap. I want to point out too that that big open space you see in the middle of the range map is slowly filling in. That's been the last place that bobcats have recolonized in the United States. But east to west, north to south, wherever there was habitat, there were bobcats. Okay, so just a minute on the Canada lynx, because they take the idea of an extreme animal to even more farther limits. First of all, cold adapted. This is a boreal forest species. Incredible coat. If you ever get to lay your hands on a lynx fur, it is amazing. They're just spectacular. But a lot of specialized adaptations to living in the cold. The huge feet, snowshoe feet, in this case, they're covered with fur. Think about what they walk on all the time. The back end is higher than the front end, and that's a common thing for this genus, and the best explanation anyone can give is that they happen to be specialized in a prey species that's incredibly fast and can bound long distances, rabbits, and so consequently, that was their adaptation. Here's a picture of one after a snowshoe hare. Snowshoe hares are the ecological equivalent of the cottontail rabbit in the boreal forest. So if you're in the lower 48, in most cases, you're looking at cottontail rabbits, and you go up to the boreal forest in Canada, you're looking at snowshoe hares. All right, so back to bobcats. I mentioned a little bit that they have a more flexible prey base than most of the other lynx species, including the Canada lynx. And consequently, you will see them in a lot more types of habitat. They're not tied to one particular species. I mentioned already there's a domain, all of the lower 48 down into Mexico. So a little bit about bobcats as predators. They are, and I will tell you that I knew this as a fact, but until I worked with radio-collared bobcats and actually saw the way they interacted with their environment, they are amazingly capable of not being seen. They're very quiet, they're extremely well camouflaged, and very easy, very willing to sit with no movement for long periods of time. So if you're an outdoor person, and I'm guessing most of you are, pretty high likelihood that a bobcat has watched you. You may not have gotten to return the favor, but a pretty good high likelihood that a bobcat has watched you. One of the ways that they blend into their environment is changes in the coat. There's a lot of variation across the country and even within habitats, but also within a year. This is one of our Ohio bobcats in her winter coat. And here she is, same bobcat, in her summer coat. And you notice the radial collar on her neck. And we learned a lot from her. I'll show you one of her dens in a little bit. But you see how she blends in. This is the winter forest floor, summer and fall, all of the red, and whatnot. And you'll see that as we go along with pictures of bobcats, you'll see a lot of variation. So very well camouflaged in their environment. When they move, they literally look like a piece of the environment moving. I love this picture. This is a Texas bobcat in grassland habitats. So if he wasn't looking, we would have never seen him. And this is another one of our Ohio bobcats. And you can see he's all crouched down, and he is, as far as he's concerned, you don't see him. The other thing is from a behavioral standpoint, and you notice how this guy blends in. Very, very still, very, very quiet. You sit, you wait, you watch. When you finally see something, remember those athletics. You spring, explode, literally. And if all goes well, you emerge from the weeds with a very self-satisfied smirk on your face and a cotton rat. So what do they eat? Well, in desert habitats, in all cases, rabbits are always important, okay? It's just that they can use other species other than rabbits. So rabbits are always important. Rodents, if you live in the desert, you know that we have an incredibly high biomass of rodents, diversity and density. So rodents are very important. Of course, here in Ohio, here in Arizona, sorry guys, we also have bobcats in forest habitats. And we found this in Ohio as well. Tree squirrels, very important. Fills in some of the gaps. The other thing that personally think is like the perfect prey species for a bobcat is wild turkeys, right? Because they're noisy, they're usually in groups, you just hide, wait on the last one to go by, jump out and grab him. This is a picture from a trail camera in Ohio. This is a little bobcat. I would say she doesn't weigh more than 12 pounds. And she caught a hen turkey. And I would say that hen turkey is probably pushing that 12 pounds. So interesting. But what's interesting that they do with turkeys is they pull all the breast feathers out and they eat the breast. So they're pretty picky eaters on that stage. Another thing that happens in higher elevation that you don't see here in the desert is during the winter, they will scavenge deer carcasses. So say you have a hunt and you have animals that died or also are just what's left after the hunter has cleaned the deer, they will scavenge fresh deer carcasses, but only fresh. They really aren't, I don't call them scavengers because they really don't fit that niche at all. They really are in just a very small period of time that they do that. Okay, so one of the questions we're asking with this study is, all right, so we know these generalities about bobcats. How is it different for a bobcat that lives in Tucson, that lives in an urban area? And by the way, we think that Tucson probably has the largest bobcat population in an urban area in North America. It's amazing what we have here. So again, rabbits and rodents, both things that occur in urban areas. A few other things. This picture, she's holding a coot. You don't usually think of that as bobcat food. You notice she's all wet and she has a really grumpy look on her face. They don't like to get wet, just like most cats. But in this case, this was in a park and they're opportunistic. So coots live in parks and golf courses. And so you hide in the weeds and you grab a coot. Gambel's quail, any of the species that we feed in urban areas, which many of us do, what you do when you do that is you increase densities and you increase number of animals together in a certain area, which also benefits the predator. So lots of times places that you feed things like Gambel's quail are good places for predators to hunt. If anybody's gotten the great privilege of living with a wood rat, you know that they also occur in high densities in urban areas. They are very willing to live with us if we're willing to tolerate them. And another important food base for urban bobcats. I love this picture. So a man came home and he had a female and 3 kittens hunting the squirrel on his roof. So here's what's important about this. First of all, obviously there are other opportunities for urban bobcats, but from the bobcat's perspective, this is like a bunch of rocks, okay? So just because we look at it and see a house and a roof, the bobcat looks at it as a place that has a prey species. So they're able to utilize our structures, take advantage of things that we have done to the environment that work to their benefit. One of the main questions that we're asking in this study is, do bobcats prey on pets? Because it's a question that comes up, and a lot of people have had experience or at least heard stories about coyotes, for instance. What's interesting about bobcats is the research that's been done on urban bobcats has shown very little use of urban pets. Okay, so by and large, it has not been an issue. Now, that said, you know, if you look at these 2 cats, who's the more vulnerable one? I don't think this cat has got a problem. She's not going to come in contact with a bobcat. This guy, very possibly. So it really comes down to, and this is a big part of what we'll try to do with this study, is thinking about the environment that you live in and the environment that you put your pets in. So responsible pet owner is going to have their animals contained in some way. But we're asking that question. It may actually be a place where we involve the master naturalists in some of our food habits information, because it's going to be, it's not obviously just pets, but it's a question that gets asked a lot. So the answer so far is no, which is a good thing. All right, so as far as habitats go, we all know desert areas, mountainous areas, rocky areas, steep places that you and I don't necessarily want to go, all provide shelter, they provide den sites, and they make it easy for bobcats to catch their prey. Forests, they just switch over to trees. They use trees for security. They use trees to sleep in even sometimes. Grasslands, we mentioned already the bobcats in Texas. And now we know that if you're a bobcat, this nice rocky slope, this fence works just as well, okay? You're getting from one place to another. So one of the big questions that we ask in this study is, what type of habitats do Tucson bobcats prefer? And we've tried to pick a study area to begin where we'll do our trapping that includes all of our habitats. So they have an option to utilize wildlands, what we call altered but open, which is golf courses, parks, things like that. And then the whole range of urbanization, everything from very, very close together to very dispersed. So we try to pick an area in Tucson where each one of our bobcats will have access within their home range to all of these different types of habitats. And we'll let them tell us what's important. Here's our study area. So basically, this is Tucson Mountain Park, and then up to Saguaro National Park. There's Tucson Estates. And so what we did was, and first of all, know that we just picked this area to trap in. The bobcats are actually going to show us what the study area is. But what we'll do is we will set our traps on the urban side, but along this boundary where you have that mixture of urban and suburban and even wildland. And so that's where we'll start our trapping. And then our analysis will be based on the bobcat's movements. So a little bit about just reproductive biology for bobcats. Like most cats, all bobcats are single moms. The males do not help. Well, they help in one way, but then they don't help from then on. She finds the den, she has the kittens, she feeds the kittens, hunts for the kittens, and kind of an added layer of stress with cats, and this applies to bobcats as well, is that they practice something called infanticide. And so what that means is that a male bobcat is going to know all the females in his home range, and he'll know who he bred with and who he didn't breed with. So if he happens to come upon a female or finds a den site of a female who did not breed with him and has kittens, he will try to kill those kittens. And the reason is because within just a very short period of time, she will rebreed and have more kittens. So potentially a breeding partner for him, and he's eliminating kittens that did not belong to him. So part of her den selection probably has to do with avoiding males. One of the questions we'll be asking is, when are the kittens born? So the conventional wisdom on bobcats, not just here in Arizona, but across the range, is that they can have kittens every month of the year, which is pretty unusual. There aren't very many animals you can say about. And the reason for that is that if she loses her kittens, so say she has kittens and a male finds her, she loses those kittens, she very quickly comes back into estrus, she rebreeds. 70 or so days later, she has another litter of kittens. If those kittens don't survive, the same thing happens, and she'll just keep trying. They're very persistent from that standpoint. So you could potentially have sea kittens at any time of the year. What we found in Ohio, and what I expect to find here, is that even though we saw kittens all times of the year, there was one about 2-week period where everybody had their kittens at the same time. So in other words, we had a breeding season about the middle of February, and then middle of April to the end of April, everybody had kittens. And then if someone didn't survive, then she was out of sync, but there was some synchronicity there. So that's one of the questions we'll ask. And then the other place is, where do they have the kittens? Bobcat kittens are just like domestic cat kittens. They are tiny, eyes are closed, they are completely helpless and vulnerable for the first several weeks of their life. So what we found in Ohio was that they used these big areas of, this is where a log truck had, a logging operation had pushed a bunch of stuff over a hillside. This is about 80 feet long and about 15 feet high. And you could not have found a bobcat kitten in there if your life depended on it, because she had so many ins and outs, so many little niches. These were incredibly successful. I think every single one of our females who had kittens in this situation raised the kittens. This was one of my favorite dens. So I was out trying to locate, when they have the kitties, they stay with them for about 3 days. And you have to locate the den in that period of time, because after that, they're hunting. They come in, they feed the kittens, and they're gone again because they're feeding themselves and they're nursing kittens, and they don't spend very much time at the den. So we go in that first 3 days, and I had walked all along. There's a very thick area, and I had walked all around and could not find anything that I thought was big enough for a bobcat to be in. And I saw some movement of my eye. I looked over, and she was backing out of this hole, squeezing out of this hole. And she had had the kittens in this hollow log, is where she raised them. I'm sure she didn't spend much time in there with them, but it was very cool. This is another one. This opened up into a beautiful cavity. And when we tried to locate this den, every time we got close, she would run away. And we could not figure out why until she moved her kittens at about 8 weeks, and we were able to come in and locate the spot. And it was full of bobcat hair, so we knew it was the den site. This den was in a fire, lightning struck tree. This is a big sycamore tree. And we followed the signal in, and of course, no one was peeking in there while we knew she was there. So we set up a camera, and this is what we saw over and over and over again. I'll show you again. Hang on. Here we go. I don't know why we never got her coming out, but she went on about 50 times. We didn't do so good with the cameras on that one. But anyway, so what I did was I snuck down when she was gone the next time and leaned around with my camera and took a picture, and there are 2 little bobcat kittens curled up there. And she raised these kittens, and it was pretty cool. We didn't see the kittens hardly ever because we were trying not to, but we didn't want to disturb them. Okay, so she has the kittens. She keeps them in typically where they were born for somewhere in 6 to 8 weeks. Now, if something disturbs her, who knows what, a male shows up, she'll move them. But by and large, she'll keep them there for about 6 to 8 weeks. And then she moves them to what we call a secondary den. They stay there till they're 10 to 12 weeks old. At that point in time, she starts to take them with her. They're little guys. They do not go very far or very fast. So she stashes them a lot. So I have a video of probably about a 3-month-old kitten. And this will make you wonder how they ever survive. This is a high mortality time too for them. You have to wonder how many times she had to come back and get him while he was doing all that. Oh, there we go. Okay, so then by about 5 months of age, you're traveling with her. They're learning how to hunt. She's still catching some food for them, but they are learning how to hunt. And somewhere between 6 and 10 months, they separate. Now, we used to think that when they separated, they left her home range and dispersed and went and found their own place. And there's a pretty neat study that was done in Iowa recently. And while most of them disperse, almost all the males, they actually stayed in the mother's home range. They were about 1.5 years old. So she has another litter of kittens. No one's really sure if she chases them away before she has the kittens or if the breeding male chases them away. I have read some anecdotal reports, and those of you who have raised teenage boys might appreciate this, that the female leaves her home range with the male kitten and comes back without him. So she leaves him someplace. I'm sure they get tired of him. And by then he's almost as big as her, if he's not as big as, but I have a video. So again, a time of tough time for young animals is always when they're separate from their moms. Again, if you have college age kids, you know this. But I love this video. So this is a big kitten, big male kitten, who is just about to separate from his mom, but he still has some issues with hunting. So if you watch right over here, on to the next thing. So one of our questions, when do Tucson Bobcats have and raise their kittens? So again, what we know so far is anecdotally to a Bobcat mother, a flat roof on a house can look like a rock pile. It can look like a very safe place, or a space under a deck or in a backyard can look like a brush pile. So she's gonna pick a place that she feels safe and where she believes her kittens will be safe. So a big focus of our project is to try to find out where, when, and where they have the kittens. These are all Tucson Bobcat moms and kittens. Everybody loves green grass to roll on. I love this one. This one's asleep and this one's taken and is nursing. So this is like a flat rock, right? These guys. And then this is your typical really nice bi-level, tri-level waterfall. So again, you know, it's amazing that they tolerate, I guess for me would be the best word, us, and able to take advantage of the environment. One of the other things that we are asking questions, because other studies have found this, how do roads impact bobcats? Obviously, other than getting run over, but are they a barrier? Something like I-10 may well be a barrier. If you're a responsible pet owner, your cat has been vaccinated against feline leukemia and feline distemper. Bobcats don't get vaccinated, but they can still come in contact with those diseases. And the other thing is just stuff that we put out that we don't think about and how it impacts animals. So Paul Stillman sent me an email and he said, I have these pictures of this green bobcat. And I thought, okay, green bobcat. Well, go ahead and send them. So he sent them. This is a female. And he thought she had rolled in pre-emergent weed killer that you put down. And I guess it's colored so that you can see where you've put it. But anyway, it was gone the next day, so it probably didn't cause any harm. But remember what I told you about how they utilize their environment and utilize their color? She used it for camouflage. Another question that we're asking, and this is based on some research in California, is if people continue to use rodenticides, so things like decon, if you put decon out and something catches it or something eats it, and then the bobcat or mountain lion or coyote or dog or whatever catches that animal and eats it, the poison is passed on. If it's enough poison, it will act on the bobcat or the mountain lion, just like it does on a rat or a mouse, which is to cause them to bleed to death internally. In smaller amounts, it compromises the immune system. And there was a situation in Southern California where they documented about half of their radioed bobcats dying from this. So bottom line is, don't use rodenticides. We're past that. just catch it. If you need to catch a mouse or a rat, use a snap trap. It's way safer. So back to the study and what we're doing. First thing is, and this will start about the middle of November, capturing bobcats along that Wildlands urban interface in West Tucson and fitting them with radio collars. We have 9 radio collars for this year. And these are amazingly sophisticated. They cost about $2,000 each, and they are GPS and satellite based. They actually have two-way communication. So when I think she's getting ready to have her kittens, I can change the information I get from her. Depending on what's going on, I tell it how many locations. It takes very accurate GPS locations. And then again, depending on what we're trying to find out, it sends us an email. So we get emails from our bobcats with that data, and then we can plot it and we know where they've been. One of the other good things about it is tells us immediately if the animal does not move for a period of time. In our case, it was 4 hours that we chose. So that could mean one of two things. Either they took the collar off or the animal's dead. And of course, part of what we're trying to find out is what is the mortality and what causes it. One of the things I like best about these collars is they're programmed to drop off at a given time. It also should send me a signal if its battery is getting low, and then I can tell it to drop off. It has a little mechanism on it that just pops it open and it falls off. The other thing, again, is just where are they hunting? I love this picture. You watch this way, I'll watch this way. Where do they hunt? Where do they rest? What's a safe place for them? And birth and raise kittens. By the way, this is the kitten of the green bobcat. The other thing that we're doing is, because Tucson has so many bobcats, is that we're asking people to take a survey. And you don't have to be in our study area or anything. If you want to take the survey, you just go to our website and click on Take Our Survey. It's very short and it's only a few minutes, but we're just trying to get feedback from people, both people who live with bobcats and people who don't, about, is it a good thing? Are you afraid? Are you, how do you feel about this? Because it's a really unique situation that we have here in Tucson. And then the other thing, also on the website, is we're asking people, if you have a neighborhood bobcat, if you're one of those incredibly lucky people who have a female who has kittens in your yard or on your roof or wherever it happens to be, let us know about it, because we'll gather all that information. We're not going to come trap her. We're not going to come to your house. We're just going to have a map of Tucson that shows where we have concentrations of bobcats. So 2 things you can do on the website. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and I'm very hopeful that as we go along, we'll be able to, once we get past this time of none of us being able to be near each other, have the group be part of the study in a bigger way than we have so far. So happy questions. I'll give the screen back to you, Lorianne. There you go.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that information. I put the website there in the chat for folks so they can grab that if they want to and hang on to it.
Okay.
Dan Collins had a couple questions, so I'm just going to turn it over to him to ask. Dan.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi.
Thank you for the great presentation, especially the photos. They were beautiful.
Absolutely.
Is this strictly a capture and collar study, or will you also be utilizing trail cams and scat studies?
Good question. Yes, it's all of the above. So what we'll do on all of our traps, which are a cage trap, by the way, all of our traps will have a camera on them, so we can kind of watch what's going on. And then I'm really hoping that if we're able to locate den sites, we can put some cameras on the den sites and kind of be able to, see what she's bringing in and what the kittens are doing and whatnot. We're not doing camera surveys from the standpoint of like a widespread, network of cameras. We're not doing that. That's a great technique, by the way, and it works really well with bobcats. And then the diet part, I think we'll have 2 parts, and this is where I'm hoping that one of the places I'm hoping the group can help us. One will be we'll be picking up bobcat scats when we find them. Scats are poop, by the way, in biologist talk. And I think the best study I've seen on this was that they laid transects out and they went over different seasons in the desert, and they picked up all of the carnivore scat that they found. And then they took it and they separated it out by species and then looked at the food habits. And what was cool about that was you could see where there was overlap. So one of the questions about bobcats and coyotes is how much overlap is there? And there's some evidence, not so much here in the desert because they've lived together forever, but there is some evidence in some other places where coyotes have moved into, which is across most of the United States now, that they can displace bobcats, that you can actually have a situation because you have significant overlap. So that part will start next year because we'll get the cats radioed and then we'll put our transects in their home ranges. So within a cat's home range, we'll be able to look at what they have available to them. And then the other part of that is some kind of prey surveys. And I'm not sure yet how. It could be rabbit surveys where you walk a transect or drive a transect and count rabbits. It might be small mammal trapping. So, but those pieces are, will drop into place once we get our cats radioed. Good question.
Okay, and then I also missed in the beginning, I think you mentioned how long will the study be?
I didn't mention that, 3 years.
3 years.
So our collars, we spent a lot of time agonizing over the collars, and what I have worked out now is that if we put a collar on a male, adult male, it should last for about 2 years, which I'm thrilled to death about. If we put a collar on an adult female, it will probably last about 1.5 years. So what happens is we switch to a much more intensive monitoring of her when we think she's going to have kittens. And so we probably will try to catch some of our females and replace collars next year. But regardless, we'll have 2 years, 2 full years of trapping. So 2 falls of trapping. And then we technically have to be finished now, 3 years from now. So that's what the schedule is.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Nice. Okay, we have a couple of questions coming in the chat box and a couple of comments. Sam Wilbur says that she was part of a carcass study in South Africa and they collared cats and all that, but they also did a cluster analysis where they collected scat samples to analyze. So if you need help, she's happy to help you.
Cool. Very cool. Very cool. I'm impressed. I'm envious.
And then Bindi says, have you noticed cat scratch posts in the forest or open space? Would a bobcat use this signpost? And you've seen 2 or 3 posts in the forest with an hourglass.
That's a good question. They don't, as much as some animals do that, bobcats don't do as much, and actually wildcats in general, as you would think. And what they do when they do scratch is it's horizontal. All right, so watch your cat on, if you ever are outside with your cat or if you have things for them to scratch on, they love horizontal. Okay, so what they'll do is they'll lay out and they'll scratch on that. They don't do like the height scratching, for instance, like bears do, I'm taller than you are. They don't seem to do that. They do a tremendous amount of scent marking. They key on everything, including your cameras. But yeah, that's a good question. I think with bobcats, just like your house cat, it's more rubbing the face, doing the scent marking, those kinds of marks. They do what's called scraping, which is another thing that they do. And those are all visual and scent marks.
Nice. And Katie says that y'all have seen vertical and horizontal scratching trees and logs too.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
And Suzanne wanted to verify that the Southwest Wildlife Conservation Center is the one that's in Scottsdale. That's correct.
That's correct. Yes, yes, absolutely. And they do a lot of very good work. They, when you go to our webpage, you'll see another study that we're trying to help them get started, that they end up with kittens, urban kittens that either get separated from the mom, or more often they get the whole family, that someone has them at their house and they're afraid, or I don't know, whatever, and they rehabilitate those kittens and they release them, but they don't have any information on what happens. So there's actually a place on the website that you can donate to this study too, but you can also donate to that. Yeah, okay.
Fantastic. I'll quickly put that link in the chat box too for the
Thank you.
Wildlife Conservation Center.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any other questions that you want to ask? Yes, yes, no, maybe so.
All right.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, I'm sharing my screen with just a little bit of information there. Most folks here are already Master Naturalists, but for those of you that aren't, there's the website for the Arizona Master Naturalist Association, and we have training opportunities coming up, and we'll also tell you more about this program that we have. I think Cheryl's going to contribute some content for us in the Tucson chapter, and you'll have more information about the study available and everything there and the volunteers that you need at that point. So we hope that you're interested in joining us for that. And yeah, I just want to say thank you so much, Cheryl. This was fantastic. Those pictures were great. And the folks that are already helping you, I know are doing a great job. So thanks to Pete for pulling together the website. All of this, we're really excited.
Absolutely. And thank you. I was so thrilled to get to start here with this group. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to keep that going.
Fantastic.
All right.
Well, thank you all for joining us. I'm going to stop the recording here, and we don't have any other questions.
I do have one other comment, Lorianne. We're going to start trapping in mid-November, and check back to the website because it will be interactive and ongoing. So as we catch bobcats, we'll put that information on the website and try to keep everybody enthused. So for sure, check back.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds
Thank you.
I will also put all that information in the email that I sent to everybody that registered.
Thanks.
So
great. Thanks so much.
all right. Thanks, team.